Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life with Sabine Parzer. Hi, everybody. This is Sabine with another episode of Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life. And I'm here with Michael Bean. Hi, Michael Bean.
Hi, Sweet.
It's so lovely
I'm
to
joining
see
you
you
from
here.
Salt Spring Island today, where I'm tempted to turn the camera around so that you can see how beautiful it is outside, but then you would also see the absolute chaos of this room, because I'm set up in a corner of my son's room, and so I'm surrounded by a sea of Magic the Gathering cards. This like little collectible trading card game beloved by nerds everywhere. And so maybe I'll let everybody who's seeing the video continue to see the clean professional version.
Where for those of us, I mean, I've known it because this is where I met you. But for
Yeah, Salt
those,
Spring Island is
yeah,
on the west coast of Canada. The largest, the province on the west side of Canada is British Columbia. Yeah, and I mean, Canada's massive, so we're sort of like in the bottom corner, of British Columbia, and then there's like a little island. If you're looking at a map, like just off the coast of BC, you'll see like a lone island, and I'm on a teeny teeny island that's in between that island and the mainland. There's Canada's Gulf Islands. There's a couple of them, and Salt Spring Island has a surprisingly active and like very connected contact improvisation community, partly because 10 plus years ago, Martin Keogh, who is an international level contact teacher, moved here. Talking to some of the people who are organizers in the community, they're like, no, we were already here. And then Martin joined us. So it's like I only got here 4 years ago, so that I will leave the chicken and egg debate about did they get a really amazing contact team, because they had an international level teacher, or did the international level teacher just like see something juicy and jump in? I think it's unclear.
it's such an amazing place. It's where I met you also at the Contact Improvisation Festival
Mhm.
at Rhizome Springs. There is something very special about the island altogether. Besides the vibrant dance community, there is something very attractive to artists or people who think differently or feel differently. And it feels like, it's native land. So there is something very powerful. I find it in the nature. Like it's very lush. It's this, what do you call it? That temperate,
Temperate rainforest.
temperate rainforest. So there's all these like ferns, like, flowers or plants that we would actually like something like that, like I would have in
Mhm.
my house. I would actually find in the rainforest on the island. And then at the same time, there's this Pacific. So the nature, of course, is gorgeous, but there's something about the island where there is this like alternatively minded group of people that, for some reason, love to dance, which is also where I met you during that festival. And I would like to begin this podcast by asking you a question, which I start with most of my podcasts with, which is, if you go back into your memory, your visceral memory of being a child or being a young person, do you have any sense of memory about when you were moving, like any like joy of movement or joy of moving in nature? And could you describe that experience to us if you do have a memory?
Hmm. I No, I would say I don't actually, have visceral experiences from childhood. I would say that for large parts of my young life, my body was a site of suffering,
Hmm.
and that I didn't live in it. I tried to avoid living in it, by
Hmm.
choice as much as possible. And it wasn't until I was 19 or 20 that I suddenly found myself almost by accident, in an experience of ecstatic dance. and
Mm.
it just like cracked me open. So my
Mm.
journey towards living my body really came through dance. It's as close to a spiritual practice as I've found in my life.
Mm.
But
Can you describe
yeah, that
that cracking open? Do you
yeah, okay.
remember that?
So it's oh it is December 2002, and I'm at a retreat with friend acquaintances, a bunch of people I don't know, but it's very warm, and very connective, and everybody's sort of offering workshops. They're just sort of written up on a board somewhere. Somebody's like, I want to do this. And they write it up and they stick it to a board. So it's very uncomfort style. I'm like, sure, 5 rhythms. What's that? That's fine. I like that person who's teaching. It'll be nice. Uh, and so I don't remember the dancing. I remember the tail end. 5 rhythms dance, for anybody who hasn't experienced it, is the work of this woman named Gabrielle Roth, who
Awesome.
studied how people dance themselves into altered states and wanted to decontextualize it, to take out the religious or sort of explicitly culturally spiritual elements and try and find something that was movement based that would still take people into that state. So it starts with it starts with circles, so it starts fluid, and then staccato, and then chaos, and then lyrical, and it's extended, and then stillness. And so I remember as we sort of came to stillness, yeah, laying on the floor, with my whole body feeling alive and being transported by imagery, just feeling really like
Mm.
carried away into vivid imagery, and the images themselves are mostly gone. My memory is mostly somatic. I remember how it felt, and I don't remember exactly what people said. I don't remember exactly the details, but yeah,
Mm.
that's the images, laying on the ground and just like sinking through the floor and having my whole body feel alive and electric and feel like,
Mm.
what is that experience? And whatever it is, I must have more of it.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. You're an actor, an author, and an acting coach. And I'm wondering how the relationship between acting or theater and dance sort of shows up in your life, maybe historically and or also professionally. Like, is there an overlap, or are these fields sort of just the same, bigger field for you, or do you separate them? Like, how is that relationship between dance and theater for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a complicated answer to your complicated question. Yeah, but
Great.
let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find the just a couple of sentences version, and then you can pick at the threads that interest you.
Mhm.
I think that for me, the performing arts are the performing arts are deeply connected. Yeah, and I don't think that there is a huge distinction between performing as an actor and performing as a professional dancer and performing as an opera singer, yeah, on a foundational level. What you're doing is navigating a space of, I am going to do a technical skill, and I'm going to invite other people to watch. I'm going to shape that experience into something that is personally, artistically, aesthetically interesting, for the audience. And I'm going to be surfing my own experience inside of it. So, I mean, the technical requirements of each, certainly I have an experience of as radically different. And I would say that dance, because dance became a site of deep personal exploration and development, is something that I deeply loved and found nourishment in, that I was never interested in pursuing performing it professionally.
Mm.
The I and maybe that roots back to uh, I I'm curious about your experience at this because you've taught so many dancers. But when I'm teaching actors, what I will say is that the more your attention is on yourself, the less interesting you are to watch. Right? The more somebody's like, "What is my face doing? And am I saying the words exactly the way that I chose to?" Watching somebody do that kind of acting is terrifically boring. The best you can possibly do for somebody like that is make them sound sort of neutral and normal. And if they're very, very pretty to look at, that can still sometimes be engaging. Right. And so I think that we've all seen plenty of television where you're like, wow, you have amazing cheekbones and, you sound like a normal human. There's not a lot of feelings and there's not a lot of interest to it, but pretty to look at. And so when I'm dancing, I want to be fully in sensation. And as soon as I start thinking about what it looks like, I lose the joy. And I've never been willing to do that to my experience of dance. And I talk to lots of people, who can do both. Who they're like, no, I'm in sensation, I'm in joy. And part of the fun game is, what does it look like in space? And are my toes pointed the way that I want to? And that is not something that I have found internally a way to make joyful. Whereas I can do that in acting. And there is sort of like a weird double think that goes with it, because again, the most interesting work, you cannot be focused on yourself, but you do have to have an awareness of the technical aspects of where am I and how am I presenting. So
So two
is there a
things come
connection
to
between
mind.
that and dance? Yeah, please.
Oh, totally. Well, one thing that comes to mind is my friend and you met also Chris Aiken. I don't know, from last year. Also, he was at South Spring Island, and Chris famously says, "Don't be interesting, be interested." Yeah.
Yes.
So what? Yeah, it's not me watching you, and it doesn't matter for me if it's theater or if it's dance or if it's music. If it goes beyond the person and if it's about the thing, or a thing or the space or or a connection or something, that becomes interesting. And then as sort of a follow-up, I become interested in you being interested. But it's not about just attracting the attention, and it's not about it's not about me and the form that I'm actually making as a dancer. And the other thing is that this is maybe very specific to contact improvisation, but I think it goes along with what you're saying is oftentimes when we become too focused on like the partner or the bubble, like just sphering around ourselves, what it actually needs is an anchor somewhere else. It's an anchor in space, or it's an anchor with a focus that is not just going inward. And in order to make it more, three-dimensional, four-dimensional, or just to provide some sort of anchorage that gives you a place to move to and from. So it doesn't become so static and one-dimensional. Those are the things that I relate to what you were saying. I love how you say surfing your own experience while doing whatever. You said that before. I don't know if you heard yourself saying that.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not a surfer. That's not a physical. It's not a physical practice that I'm interested in. But I think that for acting, it is the best metaphor for what makes the most electric or interesting acting. Because the whole thing with surfers is, you go where the waves are. You don't control where the waves are. You go to them. You're not in control of them. You are actually just trying, to precariously balance on the exact spot before it crashes. And that's what makes acting the most electric and interesting to watch. Is if you can't make the waves happen, and watching community theater acting, I think, is painful to me because it's watching somebody try and make a wave. They're like trying to cry, and it's just like, oh my God, please stop making that horrible face and sound. Because what they're doing is they're trying to summon up a wave from nothing. And they either like get just a little ripple, or they get so caught up in their own feeling that they completely lose the story. And so the art for acting is, okay, where do I need to go where the waves are? And then how do I stay just on top of them without crashing down into self-consciousness, without being overwhelmed by the feeling? And when you can do that, it's genuinely dangerous. Like there genuinely is the possibility of falling off either in the direction, of technical, I'm going to be focused on what it looks like, or falling off in the direction of being overwhelmed by feeling. But if you can stay sort of perfectly balanced there, that's when the work's most exciting to watch. And I think that that's true in, maybe not just in performing arts, but sort of more broadly, is that if there's an element of risk or uncertainty, it makes audiences pay attention more.
Yeah.
Right. It's one of the reasons why they say never share a stage with a kid or a dog, because both are so unpredictable, like genuinely unpredictable, that the actors just become less interesting because you're like, what's it going to do? Is it going to bite somebody?
Yeah.
Is it going to pee? Is it going to, and audiences' attention just is like magnetic to whatever is dangerous on stage.
Yeah.
And again, I'm curious what the connection to dance is there.
Yeah, what I'm getting also is sort of this polarity or this tension between my inner experience and what the wave is doing to the, if it's an ensemble or if it's a duet or if it's a spatial orientation. And in some ways it's self-regulating, but that almost sounds too it sounds too balanced. Yeah, or it sounds too, kind in a way, because it's like, I just feel like again, it's similar to what I was saying before about having an awareness of the space, that there's always a relationship. There's a relationship to the external, and then there's a relationship to the internal, and they both need to be tended to. And I think some of the greatest artists, and it doesn't really matter which art it is, you can kind of have a sense that they're in both, or they're relating to both. Like when you're watching somebody, like, I don't know, if, Miles Davis has his 100th whatever birthday right now, so everybody's talking about Miles Davis. But like when you watch performances of Miles, it's like you can watch him being fully immersed in the ensemble and in the music, but there is something deeply going on within himself also. And so that relationship, I think that is something that makes magnetic performances. And I almost don't know if you can teach that. Maybe that's the question to you. Do you think you can teach that? Can you practice it? Yes, but like really teach it to somebody? Or does somebody have to have that sort of seed of knowing where that is? That, I don't know. Can you teach that, do you think?
Well, like you said, I think that you can look, if you can learn it, then, right, if it is learnable, then you can create teaching environments that support it, right? You can make it more likely for somebody to discover that. You can, put nuggets of it in their path, and, often enough that they're more likely to collide with them, even by accident.
Make them tasty. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Where you're like, okay, I'm going to take you where the waves are, and then when you fall off repeatedly, I'm going to say, that's normal. That's normal. Like your desire to make this perfect before you even know what you're doing, that's the problem. Yeah, and we can support our students in building more tolerance for discomfort. The and
being in the unknown, also
being in the unknown.
Staying and being
That's
in the
exactly
unknown.
Exactly, and that's the language that I use for being in the unknown. right? To
Mm,
like to be in the unknown is the mythopoetic version, and um, like for me makes for good poetry, but as a teaching concept, it feels too abstract, for me.
mm,
Whereas tolerance for
mm,
uncertainty, is something that social scientists really talk about. It is like
mm,
for me, for whatever reason, that feels more concrete. But you could say tolerance for the unknown, right? Because it's not like the unknown goes away just because you're not paying attention to it. You know, it's it's more like, can you be in that and still do what you're doing? Can
mm,
you tolerate how much self-consciousness can you tolerate before you collapse?
mm,
How much like, oh my God, is this really what we're doing? Where is this going? Before it all falls apart.
mm.
That's one of the reasons why contact improvisation cultures, although there are distinct dialects in different parts of the world, and I've met people who really are deeply in those distinct dialects. I've had some wonderful conversations with you where you've talked about like experiencing deeply, oh, this culture of contact, this culture of contact. But still, even with that, I'm really confident I can have a good contact dance with somebody who's in a radically different dialect, because the number of things that have to overlap before somebody's like, yeah, I'm going to get together with a total stranger and press my whole body into theirs. In fact, I'm going to let them stop me from hitting the floor while we do a dance form that has literally no rules, but we also really want to do well. That sounds like fun. Then the number of things that have to overlap before that's somebody's idea of fun are very high. It's a very high. There's a lot of shared values or a lot of shared interests for somebody to say yes to that experience in the first place.
Oh, that's a wonderful description of contact improvisation. These four components alone have to align before we can even
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah, just to
Yeah.
get in the room, you got to have a ton in
Yeah.
common with somebody. Yeah. And
Beautiful. So, yep.
just that body contact is so confronting for most people,
Oh, of
right? Which
course,
is another
touch.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
touch, right? Brings up so much.
Yeah. So, just to go back a little bit into your
Mm,
story and also to make it a little bit tangible for people who might not know you. Also, we're all the way over here in Europe and maybe people have not seen you before, but you've been in film, you've been in theater. Like, what is sort of the timeline of your progression of your professionality, and like where do you find yourself now? I know that's a big question again, but like how do you, from the 19-year-old Michael Bean who explodes through ecstatic dance, like
mhm,
is
mhm.
acting there before, or does that weave into it? And like how do you how would you describe your professional sort of arc?
Trajectory. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly. That feels accurate. It's less of an arc and more of, sort of like a blob. So acting was present for me there before. At the time, at the time that I experienced ecstatic dance opening me up, I was very focused on professional improvisation, and what was available in Vancouver at the time was comedy improvisation and some sort of avant-garde theater improvisation. And so I was involved in both of those worlds really heavily for a couple of years. And then hit a wall in Vancouver where I realized that to do the kind of improvisation, theater improvisation that was interesting to me, I would literally have to move to a different community. That the dominant form of improvisation that was both being practiced and also basically make a living doing, or make a living, make any money at all doing, in Vancouver at the time was a comedy improvisation that was closer to sketch comedy or stand up, than to theater. Right, Europe at the time had a bunch of very cool theater improvisation, that was funny but was also deeply focused on the theatricality. And I got to interact with some of the artistic directors of companies in Europe, because there was an international festival in Seattle that I used to go to, and I just blown away. Very, very cool. Um, but for me, it put me in a crisis where I was like, oh, I don't want to leave my community. So now what? And so at that point, I started exploring film and television acting. Vancouver has a very active film and television scene. It is maybe the one thing that you can do in Vancouver and more reliably be well paid to do professional work. And so then for the subsequent 25 years, that was my main professional focus, was film and TV acting. Partly because I fell into teaching film and TV acting to young people quite early on in that process. So within a year or two of pivoting to film and TV acting, I started teaching kids. Yeah, and teaching young people proved to be a good way to consolidate my own knowledge. I think that teach the thing that you want to learn or teach the thing that you want to practice. As long as you are sufficiently ahead of the people who you are teaching, which, like, if you're teaching 12-year-olds, you're way ahead of them just as a person. You're like, I know so much about being alive that I'm not going to be able to fit it all into this 2-hour class, no matter what. So that was good practice for me, teaching young people. And then I just kept teaching acting. Once I found that I could support myself doing that, I gradually grew until I had a little school in Vancouver teaching film and TV acting. And, I was dancing on the side, but just for my own joy and exploration. Anytime I touched something that was close to performance, I could not handle it. And that's all I'm saying, is that I experienced such profound self-consciousness when I turned my lens from sensation into what is it supposed to look like, that I have not been willing to build my tolerance there, because it is so deeply uncomfortable that I'm just like, this is horrible and I want to escape.
And I imagine,
so then film
yeah. If I just interrupt for a moment,
please.
I would still imagine, though, that your physical practice, your dance practice, your contact practice, was still informing your presence as an actor, because I feel like I can see. If in an actor, I can see if they are in their bodies or not. And I can see, like, just simply by how the breath is moving or how much body awareness there is, and also how kinesthetic acting is, or how kinesthetic their presence is, even if it's about speaking or using their voice. I think it makes a huge difference. And I wonder about that also when you were teaching or when you're experiencing that yourself, if you find that makes a difference in actors.
I think that certainly I always advise that actors have some kind of physical practice. When I was teaching more actively, it was something that I would return to repeatedly. I don't actually think that it matters what that physical practice is, as long as there's a self-awareness component to it. And so dance has a self-awareness component, so do martial arts, so does yoga. So anything that gets you both being in your body, but also paying attention to what's happening, in your body and in your experience at the same time, I think is really supportive of professional acting. And so, dance is great for that.
Okay, I interrupted. Yeah,
although I don't know. I don't know what it is like. I'm curious about your experience. Like, what is it like to teach an actor to dance? But if you're teaching a dancer to act, like, the people who are the hardest to teach are the ballet dancers. Because they're insane. Like, they're type A nut jobs. They're folks who had to be, like, so precise and so obsessed with, like, really getting every detail. Like, that when I've had professional and ex-professional ballet dancers during my acting classes, because after 10, 15 years of teaching young people, I transitioned into teaching adults. So I have had the experience of teaching professional or ex-professional ballet dancers. And they're the only people who have ever showed up for my acting classes. Like, okay, that exercise that you gave me last week, I did it 4 hours a day
Yeah.
every day this week.
Yeah.
And I've completely
And
mastered
I
it.
recorded myself and I studied
Yeah.
it and I got myself some
Yeah.
feedback on it.
What now? Now what? Whereas actors, they're like, yeah, I tried it a couple of times. It was kind of uncomfortable, so I stopped, or I did my own thing. And ballet dancers are like, yeah, it was terribly uncomfortable for the first 10 hours, and then I did 30 more of them, and now I completely own this exercise. But the technical part of like ballet dancers master the technical side of acting much faster than actors do. Because they come from this incredible, precise technical background that also involves deep, deep, deep tolerance for discomfort. I would say like almost masochistic level tolerance for discomfort, where they're like, yeah, it's supposed to feel like pain and suffering. That's what it is to balance your entire body weight on your toes. You do the thing and you get off stage and you dump the blood that is collected in your toes out of the shoe, and then you put it back on and you go back to dancing. It's just like, oh my God. So that part, has been consistent in my experience of athletes. When deep tolerance for physical discomfort and almost a like hungry desire for technical practice. Where they really struggle is being messy and having somebody watch them. And you cannot do good acting if you're not messy. And because that is the absolute opposite of ballet. Getting a ballet dancer to feel a feeling, like actually feel a messy feeling, and have somebody watch them do it. It's like pulling teeth. It would be like if somebody had to watch me try and absolutely and precisely get the like angle of my arm. Like I'm crawling out of my skin. I hate it.
It's a bit of a parallel.
I'm all the way on this side.
Yes, it's a bit of a parallel, but I remember my first years doing authentic movement. Authentic movement, right? And I remember being a professional dancer at the end of my 20s and starting to get into the practice of authentic movement. And I remember for like the first 5 years, I would basically do choreography. Like improvised choreography with my eyes closed, because that's what my body was doing. And it took me like 5 years until I started to allow myself to feel my movements. And I think I could relate what you were saying. The messiness of it is also sort of the humanness of it. There is a part in us as professional dancers where you kind of have to cut yourself off from what you're feeling, which is kind of paradoxical, because you're expressing all of these, whatever, if it's feelings or abstractness or relationality through the body. But the reality of the practice is you have to do things over and over and over again. And like you said, there's a certain masochism involved in it, or a high level of pain that you have to endure. So you also have to kind of really cut yourself off. And it took me like 5 years until I was like, oh, this is what I'm actually feeling when I'm moving. And so I'm wondering if that's related to what you're talking about in the acting also, and the messiness of it. Yeah,
I think so. And so
it's very funny when yeah, sorry.
No, you first.
No, I think I just wanted to go from the other perspective. Like when I see actors dance, like there's this whole hype about actors in movies also that have been dancing. Like I'm thinking about La La Land, and and I love watching people dance. Doesn't matter who it is. I love movement, but I'm also always thinking, it's like, oh, but if they would actually be dancers, what would that look like? And sort of the lack of knowledge that's also still out there, what dance is. And I had a podcast with Raja Feather Kelly. I don't know if you know him. He's a choreographer in New York, and he choreographs for a lot of musicals. And he talks about sort of the quality of appreciation for dance within the musical world is like, as long as there's actually dance happening, or as long as there is like a choreography happening, people will be happy. Yeah. But from a choreographer's point of view, that's not necessarily good choreography or even good dancing. It just happens to be in the frame of a film or in the frame of a musical event or a theatrical event. And then as long as it's kind of like good enough, people will go crazy. But sort of like the art of choreography or the art of dancing is still something that I feel like is not quite as there's not that much knowledge about it, and like or sort of the refinement of it, like what makes a really good dancer is actually not something that many people know about. Yeah.
I mean, certainly something that you know about and I don't. the
Yeah.
I just feel lucky on the days where I can dance and walk away feeling
Mm.
like I was a good dancer. I
Yeah.
do not know anything about taking somebody and getting them to the point, where other people routinely experience them
Yeah.
as a good dancer.
But
Yeah.
I have to say, reminds me of the dance you and I had before I think we ever had a conversation. We danced together.
Mhm.
I don't know if you remember, but we were doing this this sharing of center. It kind of had a ballroomy quality. We didn't
Mhm.
stay in a ballroom connection, but we had kind of a shared went center moving across the stage. I think it was in Chris and Angie's class, and I just remember just having this lovely connection with you, this lovely sort of sense of communication, and so for me, like as a dancer or as a choreographer, I mean, and having worked, like I've worked with so many different kind of populations. I've worked in a rehab center for 14 years with people after severe accidents, after having been a professional dancer. And I ended up being so
Mhm.
much more interested in their movement because it was so real, or it was so geared towards integration and healing rather than
Mhm.
whatever I was seeing in New York on the big stages, that I've really come to expand my definition of dance in many ways because I feel like I want to meet the person. It's not about the technique. It's not about the actual physical height or, like strength that somebody has, but especially when it's about a partnering dance like contact improvisation. I want to feel you, and I want to feel your center, and I want to be felt. I want to feel like you're listening to me and I'm listening to you. And that's where the wave starts coming in. And we had that. That's for me, I remember
Mhm.
that feeling of
Mhm.
coming out and just being elated. Yeah.
And so the question that you asked earlier, you said, it can be
Yes.
learned, but can it be taught? When
Yeah.
you're working with people in a physical discipline, how, what do you think? Can it be taught? What does teaching towards that look like?
Well, I think it's similar to what you were saying is that I can provide an atmosphere. I can, like, for me, teaching is a lot about providing a container and an atmosphere for learning. So that's number one, which is basically setting up a space where the nervous system is relaxed and feels safe enough to even get into a sort of an awareness of, oh, I feel safe, I feel seen, I feel welcome enough to want to be or
Mhm.
to be able to learn something new. Like from the polyvagal theory, that would be the ventral part of the nervous of the vagus nerve. Yeah. So I feel like that's a huge part of the job, is setting up an environment where somebody also feels like I'm interested in them. Yeah. And so it's
Mhm.
kind of like I'm I'm taking away a lot of layers that have been conditioned around learning. And so by taking them away, we're actually giving participants the space to be themselves. And so that's sort of the first step. And then after that, I can give some suggestions. I can give some, I can give a phrase, or I can give a specific technical skill, or I can give a prompt or a score. And within that, of course, people will apply that differently according to their skill level or according to their curiosity or even their aesthetics. Um, I cannot do it for them. I can only provide them with the setup.
Mhm.
But what I think we can do as teachers is we can show up in a way that if I hold the field within myself, so I feel like teaching is very much about what you were talking about earlier, about a performance practice is holding my own inner, how did you call it? The surfing my own experience. So if I'm
Mhm.
surfing my own experience as a teacher, and of course, if I bring that practice with me embodied, yeah, and
Mhm.
keeping my attention on the space, on the participants, on the group dynamics, maybe even on the composition of the workshop. Maybe there's an arc in the compositional sense of the workshop of the class. If I can
Mhm.
hold both, then I can also set the field for them to hold both.
Mhm. Mhm.
That was a
Right. Then you're
complex
modeling for
answer.
students the thing. You're modeling for students the thing that you want them to do. You're like, I can lead you in the direction of finding that for yourself, and I can also let you witness in me the thing that I want you to learn without saying, "Hey, look at this." I'm just gonna hold it, and hopefully your animal
Hmm.
body is going to pick up some of that.
Well, I don't know about you, but I feel like I pick that up with a teacher. And for me, it often doesn't even matter what form it is. If it's an acting teacher
Yeah.
or a Feldenkrais teacher or a singing coach or somebody, but like what makes people attractive is their sense of, I'm going to use an overused word, but authenticity. And
Yeah, the electric presence. The teachers in any discipline who I've just been like, I don't care what you teach, but I want to be around it more, are the
yeah,
ones who are electrically present with it.
yeah. And I think I would add another element to that, that it's not just about them, because there can be
Yeah.
super amazingly fantastic, handsome, beautiful cheekbone, um, you know, three pirouette
Hmm.
kind of dancer teachers. Um, but if they're not interested in you or in the material, I'm not interested in them. Like I'm not there as a student. I don't want to have to serve the ego of a teacher, but I think that's kind of a given for now. I want to talk to you about two more things. Um,
Hmm.
you you created a handbook for young actors called Confidence on Camera, and
Hmm.
you had already started talking about teaching young actors, and I'm wondering about confidence. Um, how do you teach confidence, or how do you deal with confidence within your own self, and how do you support others in their own confidence?
I mean, I think that confidence a is nuanced, and so my answer is going to be functionally similar to what we were talking about when we were talking about that aliveness in the performance. That there are technical aspects to presenting with confidence. For both for the person doing it and for the person watching. Competence and confidence are very connected. And so if somebody just wants to work on confidence, but they are not willing to do the work of building technical competence, then it becomes very challenging. So I think that there must be an aspect of like, first we guys just have to help you achieve a basic level of competence with this so that we can have your attention on it.
Hmm.
You know, um, but confidence is something that I think about a lot. And so I I have multiple entry points to confidence that are interesting to me. Yeah. And so maybe I'll just talk about each one a little bit. And then if you want to unpack any one of those, you can let me
Hmm.
know. How's that
Hmm.
sound?
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds great.
Yes. So there, one aspect of competence is the social construction of confidence.
Hmm.
People talk about it as though it is an inner state. And in large part, confidence is not an inner state. In large part, confidence is something we say about Sabine as we watch Sabine move through the world. And especially the people who are not Sabine's very closest friends, are going to be like, damn, Sabine is so confident. And so it is like largely has to do with somebody experiencing you as competent and aspirational in some way. They're like, what they're really just saying is, I admire the way you move through the world and it doesn't look as messy as I feel. So Dan, you are so confident.
Which, of course, is often such a different experience on the inside, right?
And that's exactly what I'm saying, right? So there is a level at which if you can just tolerate discomfort enough to stay inside whatever activity you're doing, even if that activity is, I am at a dinner party, and you're like, yeah, this feeling that I'm having that everything is bad and people hate me and I don't know what to say. The thing that I just did was dumb and I didn't bring the right wine and everybody is looking at my hair. You're like, all of those feelings that I'm having, if I'm familiar enough with them to tolerate them and to wait and tell my journal later, not to suppress them, not to make them bad, not to like lock up around them, but just to tolerate them, to be like, oh, hey, again, yeah, that's a normal thing that I'm thinking, but that's not what's happening right now. And then later, somebody's like, how was the dinner party? I'm like, oh man, it was really great. And I was in my head because of this and this and this and this, like, and I brought the wrong wine and my hair was weird. And, I'm going to tell my friend later, I'm going to tell my journal later. Then people at that dinner party, provided that I'm like there with them, and you may have the experience of me being like very confident. Yeah, and so
what comes
there's
up?
This link between
what comes up for me in this when you speak about that is again the practice of authentic movement is developing an inner witness. So
yes,
an agency inside of myself that can hold me, that can witness myself. So in the practice of authentic movement, we have this external witness who doesn't leave no matter what we do, but the external witness actually serves as an example for us to then internalize that, to develop an inner witness. And the inner witness has a parentified role in some ways, or has a sort of grounding ability to say, yeah, okay, and you brought the wrong wine and you have this hair and you don't know what to say and you're doing all of these and you're sweating and you're doing all of these things, but you're staying with yourself in the experience. And that's a beautiful definition of confidence. I love that.
Yes, right. It's like, so you're going to have all of that, but can you hold it and still stay in the experience? And when you can, I think you occur for other people as very confident. And I think that when people get confused about confidence, they either think that confidence is a performance. They're like, I just have to make the outside look perfect, and that's what confidence is. Because those two sometimes look indistinguishable. The second one will sometimes occur for people as confident, will often occur for people as brittle, or, as like the removed. Or people get into their head that confidence is an inner state that they must achieve, that it's sort of the social version of enlightenment. That confidence is the state of never doubting that anything you do is in question. You're just like, yeah, I am moving effortlessly through the life and my world, and not only do I accept everything, it's like everything is amazing. Now I don't know. I have moments of that, like 15 seconds here, like 4 minutes there. But I think that, in practice, the way that particular type of confidence actually shows up is in like profound entitlement. It is actually very uncomfortable to be around somebody who has delved super deeply into especially if they have enough professional skill to be professionally successful. But if somebody has enough of the competence to be professionally successful, but they think confidence is an inner state of never doubting anything about them, or what they do, they're terrible to be around. Then they do not do the most alive, interesting performances.
Thank you for bringing that up. I was trying to articulate that in my head. So like that sense of entitlement, or that sense of, like I can do anything, like that's not actually very interesting to be around, because that also doesn't give you space to grow, or doesn't give you space to play, or oftentimes you can't even feel that person. Like you can't.
It's also not inclusive enough. I mean, if in our heads, you have to be Ryan Gosling to be confident, all that really does is it gives everybody an excuse to fail over and over and over again. Right? If confidence has to look a certain way, and it has to sound a certain way, as opposed to confidence is me holding myself, and being in whatever I'm doing, and being present with other people, and and actually holding who I am, and in that process, that's inclusive. That's where somebody can come in for the world that I'm more familiar with, which is film and TV acting. Somebody can come into a room as shy and awkward, and be experienced as shy, awkward, and highly confident. Right? There are plenty of shy, awkward people. There are plenty of shy, awkward actors. As long as the shy awkwardness is me showing up and being like, yeah, I'm really happy to be here, but it's a lot. I'm really excited about this audition. It's not. I'm not making a story about it. I'm not losing myself. I haven't stopped being present with you. I haven't stopped being present with myself. That person can show up and be totally honest. Like they can hold all of their actual experience, and they don't have to push their chest back and swagger and be like, bam, bam, yeah, you should be so lucky to hire me. And instead they can come in with all of this and be like, hi, this is, as long as when they're doing the work, they are, clear and competent. They don't have to push themselves into a particular shape of confidence. And in fact, if they do, the people are less likely to hire them, at least in the world of film and television. Right?
Well,
there's always some work for entitled jerks. But it's is that your niche? Okay, man, then maybe that's the thing to do. But
what also comes up is, of course, a cultural difference in confidence. There is a very sort of Americanized white male, sort of Americanized, this sort of Schwarzenegger, even though he's Austrian, as Schwarzenegger, I can do anything. Yeah, it's funny that he comes up right now. And I know that from a European perspective, and especially Germanic countries, there's a super high criticality that we have from our philosophical and high art sort of tradition. And it kind of has a reverse process. So me as a 20-year-old or 18-year-old going to the States, I lived in the States for 10 years. Was a professional dancer and choreographer, and then came back. And I don't think I'm an overly confident person, but I sort of acquired a little bit of that feeling of, I can do stuff. I'm competent in what I can do, and I've achieved some of my goals, and I want to, I love what I do, and so I'm going to bring that here, with this kind of bouncy energy. And then I came to Austria with this energy, and the first reaction that I got was like, oh man, slow down. You're so American, So that sort of Americanized confidence, and I don't want to pack Canadians and Americans together, but I think there's an Anglo-American
there's a ton of cultural
sort
similarities.
Similarities.
You just lumped Germans and Austrians together a second ago.
That is true, which I'm allowed to, which everybody will hate me for anyway. Yes. But there you go. And I said the white male is also one big, huge sort of generalization, which of course is not true. But I think a sense of vulnerability. And I think what I love, again, in any artist or in any sort of person that I actually connect to is if there can be an authentic sense of self, in the sense of, I know I can do some things and some things I can't do. Like a sense of knowing yourself also and making yourself available to learning and to interacting with new things, and also owning your shit, like owning of, like there's a thing around sort of the social democratic countries that they tend to, the tall poppy syndrome. You've heard about that? Like if you stick out too much, they will cut you down because, so that, like, one of the things that I do complain about being here in my country is that I often feel like it's like, you can stand up to what you've achieved, and you can stand up to your competency or to what it is that you know how to do, and still stay open and still stay fluid. I think it's all about the fluidity within that sense of confidence. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that is a really interesting cultural difference to bring into this, because here, I don't know if there's a name for it, but it's like, but what you've got is people trying to be the tallest poppy, even if they're just a tiny poppy. They're just like, there's a little baby poppy. And they're just like, I'm going to hold my poppy up on a stick up above all the other poppies. I'm going to wave it around. I'm 22 and I just figured some things out. And now I'm going to be a teacher forever. Right. And so I don't know. There's lots of ways to be a human that are annoying. I think that one's more common here. And the like they stay in your place. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe is more common where you are. Probably both are present in both places.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting to talk to you about this because I have been. Not in crisis exactly, but I have not been teaching very much over the last 4 years. 4 years ago, I moved from 6 years ago, I moved from, a large city center where I had an established acting school and, reputation as a teacher to a small Gulf island, mostly to support parenting. And so I have not been teaching very much, but in that process, I've really been realizing that I have lost the dream for, like I teach film and TV acting. People generally get into studying film and TV acting because of the dream. And I am unclear about how to language this particular perception of confidence and authenticity in a way that meets people with what they're coming in with. Because what people are coming in with, is, I'm going to be on television and then my life is going to magically change. And I just want to pop it. I didn't be right. Like I'm so the opposite, now. Like that's what makes people pay money for a professional acting class is the dream. And I just want to be like, yes, this is a really cool skill. Yes, if you do this, probably you will get the chance to actually be on television. None of that is going to make you different, and none of that is going to change your life in the way that you are imagining it will right now. And it's like, that's a terrible pitch for an acting class. Who's going to take a class with that guy? Right, where I'm just like, you know what? I think you're actually great now as a person. And once you let go of this dream that you have, then maybe you could do something about that. But until then, this like starry eyes, I think the dream is like in dancing, at least you're going to have a bunch of mean teachers who are like, look, your toes are the wrong shape and you will never work professionally. And it's like, and at least if they're talking to ballet dancers, they could be right. Where you could be like, shit, you mean like I'm incredibly focused and dedicated and I just spent the last 12 years practicing, but something about my toes is the wrong shape. So I'd hit the ceiling of what I will ever achieve. that's horrible. But like people will tell you that, and they'll be mean and they'll be direct, and at least whereas film and TV actors, like forever, they can just always be in but it's like I just haven't found the right part for myself, and I'm going to find it. I'm going to book a job, and then everything is going to magically change about my life. It's just like, how many things have we had that dream about as mature adults now? Right? Like, what? Even by the time you're 22, you've had one thing.
Do you think it's
by the
about
time you're
like
50,
that?
you're like,
yeah. But do you think it's about wanting to be seen? Like the idea of fame. I'm assuming the dream is fame and money, and like what's actually behind it is this need for us to be seen. Do you think that that's what's underneath it?
yes. I think that, again, I think that there are a range of drives underneath of them, but that many of them are better supported by therapy than by acting class. And so there's an acting teacher, somebody who I studied with, who I just adore, like somebody who really does have a deep poetic sense of the art form and also an electric presence when she is teaching people. And one of the tools that she uses when she is advising people to understand a script is, what is your character's sustaining fantasy? Right? There is some fantasy that this character has that drives their entire life. Yeah. And what is it? Is it being seen? Is it like, once enough people see me on TV, then I will, be able to, see myself, and so, yeah, is there for film and TV actors specifically, a like deep desire to be seen? I think so. And I think there's also like a deep craving for validation. That the sustaining fantasy is, if 2 million people got to see me do that, then I would finally feel, XYZ that I need to feel. Right. So I think that the sustaining fantasy is chasing a feeling.
Yeah. So we're almost at the end.
What's the sustaining fantasy that makes somebody dance, though?
Oh boy. Well, I can think about my own. I don't know about other people's. I think in the purest version, if I remember, like, my first real like cracking open towards dance was when I was 15. And there was just this possibility to express something that I could not otherwise express. So there was like passion and feelings and messiness and, energy, lots and lots of energy that needed to go somewhere, and that just sort of found a form. And the second part of it, though, was that I was also good at it. So I cannot separate. So the pure version of it is, okay, there's something moving through me, whatever cosmic energies or archetypal energies or artistry, even, in its purest sense. But then the second part of it is like, oh, of course, this is hugely supporting my self-confidence. Because I grew up in a household with, in an alcoholic family, and there was abuse on different levels, and I felt like shit. I knew I was, I could speak. I could, I was well sort of situated on the outside. It didn't look like I was having a terrible time, but on the inside, it felt like shit. And I felt, lots of guilt and shame, the nice things that you feel in an alcoholic family that, of course, at 15, you cannot even name. And so the second end of it is like, oh, I can do this. There's somebody who's teaching me, and I'm really good at this, and I'm being seen. And then, once I started going up on stage, I was like, oh my God, I can rise to a larger version of myself. So I think part of this performing arts kick that I do see in myself, and I still also get in teaching. It's different though, but it's still there. It's this sort of rising above yourself for to reach an audience, or for for creating art together or something. And I feel like that the neuroticism and the healing quality kind of work together in,
Yes.
I don't know how else to say that. It's like, it's still me in there as a 15-year-old, and it's still like, I'm still healing some of these aspects of myself and my story. And I also see the larger container and the larger sort of purpose of that. Yeah. I
Thank
don't
you.
even know
That's
if I answered
helpful for me to hear today.
your question.
You did.
Yeah.
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 I heard that the neuroticism and the healing are connected. Yeah. And which I fully agree with. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that there's the opportunity in the practice to rise, to a higher version of oneself. Yeah. And that did and does, I think, happen best through the path of competence. Right, that for you specifically, of course you didn't have that figured out at 15. You weren't like, here's my vision. You're just like, I don't know, this feels good and I'm good at it, so I'm going to do more of it. Like, of course, It's only like many, many years later when you're looking back in retrospect, and you're like, here is the heroic arc of my journey.
Yeah.
Like, of course you don't have that figured out. You're just like, does it feel good? Does it still feel good? I guess I'll do more of that. But I
so
really,
if we're going to wrap this, if we're wrapping up
that's
your
a good spot
arc,
to wrap it up.
That's a good. Yeah, I do want to know, like, where are your little dreams going right now, or what are you reaching into in terms of projects, or yourself, or your curiosity? Like, what are you busy with right now?
Right now, I am a container that has not yet found its project. So I am beginning to do some exploration around a solo show. That's something that I haven't done before, but I have made some wonderful connections, here on the island with a couple of retired university theater professors. And so they're mentoring me in doing some personal exploration, and I've scheduled a deep dive for myself a few weeks from now in their studio and with their support. And so that's maybe that's the first section, of what's calling to me. Yeah, and truly, the next year and a bit, I'm still very heavily involved in parenting. And so. Oh, that's what it is. It's like, what's alive right now is I'm wandering. I'm wandering, I'm exploring, I'm aware that in a practical way, when my son finishes high school a year and a half from now, the more time is going to open up in my life. Yeah. And I'm thinking about what actually calls to me of now. I'm very clear on the dreams of 6 years ago. I am less clear on the dreams of right now. And so I'm allowing the wandering for the moment.
Michael Bean, so lovely to talk to you.
Lovely to talk to you as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I do look forward to dancing with you again, hopefully very soon.
Oh, there'll be a time. We value the same things. We're moving in tiny circles. It's gonna happen. Yeah.
At least these 4.
At least those 4.
If you would like to know more about holistic dance and the Holistic Dance Institute, please visit us at our website www.holistic Holistic dance is an invitation to transformation through dance, movement, and touch. It was founded by me, Sabine Parzer, in 2010. It is a mix of different methods, a dynamic cross-method approach from dance pedagogical, dance and body therapeutic, systemic and holistic methods. We offer authentic movement, integrative contact improvisation, somatics and applied anatomy, improvisation, ecosomatics, and many more elements. I offer holistic dance workshops, I offer single sessions, I offer teachers trainings, embodiment trainings, advanced teachers tracks, year groups, and retreats. I would be very happy to see you at one of our events. And if you have any questions, please write me an email.